Hello, Teresa Baker here, and it is time for us to do a classic build. We're going to start by taking the data map that we created in Module 4, and this is going to allow us to know each of the steps we need to do. So for this data map, we start out by deciding that we're going to enter into REDCap with a public survey link and head into a consent. So let's get our project started. The first thing that we need to do is we need to open up REDCap. We need to head to the My Projects page. Then we need to hit New Project. Now, when you start here, we have a format that is required. You must put your project title in this format. Start by identifying who you are. You can have it be your last name, or you can have it be your username. I'm going to use my username. Put a colon, and then you're going to want to list out the title of your project. In this particular case, we're going to call it a classic build. Now you're going to choose what the purpose of your project. This particular case, it's going to be, well, it's a training one. So I'm going to call it practice or just for fun since it's training. However, I do want to point out what happens when you hit the research option. If you choose the research option, you must comply by saying who the PI is, what the IRB number is, and what type of research it categorizes under. So for the purpose of this one, we're going to say that it's a training. Now, we're going to keep it as an empty one here, create an empty classic blank slate. However, if you are taking a project from another region, another area, another place, or even within the same instance and you're copying it, you could use another project, which is an XML file, and you could upload it here. The third option is there are some templates that are available across all of REDCap, and it's institution specific. So each instance has its own set of templates. You could choose one of these templates that is located here. We're not going to do any of those options. We're going to create an empty one. So now that we have our options, say create project. It's going to take you to the project setup page. And the first bit here is our main project setting. So let's go back and take a look at what we said we were going to do. The first thing that we said is we said that we were going to use a public survey link. That means we are using surveys. So when I'm looking at my main project settings here, the first question is use a survey for the project. And I want to say yes, enable that. Now this is a classic build, not a longitudinal, so I do not want to enable the longitudinal. In the event I made a mistake when I was creating my title, I can come back and I can edit it here. I can change my purpose here, and I can update my project notes here. When I'm done with this particular set, the very first one, I come over here and I can click I'm done, and it gives me a green check mark. Our next thing that we're going to do is we're going to go to the online designer. And our first instrument here needs to be opened up. We have record ID as our first option. Now let's go back to our map and see what we're doing. When they come in the first thing that they're going to do from the public survey link is they're going to see a study information page with a waiver of consent and documentation. And that's going to head to a consent button. So let's build that. The first thing that we want to do is we want to add a field, and we need to select the type of field. We're going to choose a descriptive field. And because we want to make this look pretty, we're going to use the rich text editor. We can start by saying welcome, and then we can give some information on our study. And then we can have maybe, you know, a picture inserted here. I'm not going to insert the picture, but we could. So let's just make this look a little prettier. We can have it have different colors and different headings. We can make it look a little bit more nice. We need to give it a variable name. So we're going to come up here to the right hand corner. Don't forget, variable names have to be lowercase. They have to have no upper, so all lowercase, no numerics at the front end. They have to start with an alpha or an alpha character or a underscore, and they have to be unique. They cannot be repeated across your entire project. So for this first one, I'm going to call this our intro, and that's the name of this, what I'm going to end up calling this form, and I'm going to call this the header. So I know that this intro is my header. Now I could add a video here. I could upload a picture here. I could have other options here, but this is going to be my starting point. So there's going to be a welcome message, there's going to be information about the study, and maybe I'll add a picture in there. Um, the next thing I want to do is I want them to give me some type of indicator that they are willing to consent and go through. Are you interested in participating in this study, right? And this is a yes, no. Yes is always 1 and no is always 0. So we called this form intro, and we need to give it some type of variable name. So we're going to call this interest. It is not going to be required, and it is not an identifier. I have it aligned on the right-hand side in a vertical fashion. Maybe I should turn that to horizontal. I like to have it in horizontal. And I'm not going to have any field notes. Okay, so there it is. Now, let's move them into the next place. Oh, you know what I want? I know what I want. I want to know when they they started. So let's get a date and time of intro, right? So intro, date, time. And let's make this validated, and let's validate it as a date, time, month, day, year, hour, minute. I don't think I need the seconds. Okay. And I don't want them to see this one. I think that sometimes you have too many options. So now we're going to use what's called an action tag. We open up the action tag, and we want to look for one that has to do with today's time or now. So there are two that are located down here. One is called now, and now is if you wanted to get a date with a timestamp, which is what we're going to do. But let me show you the today one also. At today only gives the date. It does not give the timestamp. So we want to do at now. So we're going to come up here and we're going to hit the button at now, and we're going to add it. And we're going to close this. And you can see that it added that action tag into our red box here. Okay. Oh, and you know what else we want to do? Oh, I almost forgot. We want to hide this. So let's go back to that action tag and we want to hide it. And there's lots of different options for hiding. We can hide it from everybody so that the only person that sees it is the data manager. Or you could hide it on the app. Well, we're not going to use the app, so we don't need to worry about that. We can hide it on the form. If you hide it from the form, your participants will be able to see it, but you will not be able to see it. We can hide it on the PDF so it won't print on paper. We can hide it from the survey. That means that the participant will not be able to see it, but you will be able to see it. That's the one we want. We want to be able to see the value, but we don't want the participant to see it. So I hit the add button and now it automatically added that action tag to my options. So let's save and go on. Okay, I think that's a good start for a pretend first instrument. Now let's go back out to our instrument list and we need to rename this. Let's call this intro, right? And now we need to enable it and make it into a survey so that it's actually active and live and going. So now we're going to hit this button here that says enabled as a survey. So we're going to enable it as a survey. It automatically brings in the title that you put as the instrument name. You can change this. I personally do not like using survey instructions, but I know there's a lot of people that do like it. If you want to use survey instructions, you can do so here. I prefer to put mine in a descriptive field so that it can carry with the data dictionary. Anything you put here will not go with the data dictionary. There are now the survey design options. If I have a logo, I could add a logo. I do not have a logo for this one, so we're not going to add a logo. There are, you need to make sure that your image is wider than 600 pixels. Wait, it says images wider than 600 pixels will be downsized to fit the page. So you need to be less than 600 pixels. You could choose, so this is an example of kind of what the current design looks like. This is the standard look where you have boxes and they're boxy like this. You can also have this enhanced radio and checkbox button. And if you choose this, it's kind of bubbly. The options are a little bit more bubbly. You can change the size so that maybe it's a little bit smaller, or you can make it super duper big. I like to keep it in the middle. I do not like the bubbles because sometimes your your value will come over the bubble, and I don't like that look and feel. And I personally cannot stand the default option, but if you like that, great for you. Um, there's all kinds of great options in here that are kind of automatic. Blue skies is a fairly decent one and gets good results from participants. Some of these other ones, like these colorful ones that are like this, they they tend to not get very good results. So just be wary if you go for anything that's kind of out there with your color scheme, because you want to make sure that you're not turning your person off of actually putting information in. So my favorite one currently is called flat white. It's very clean and crisp and there's nothing to it. It's my current default one. You can also customize one with your own color options if you have like a project that has a theme to it and maybe its own logo. You could come in here and you could even type in whatever your colors are and you can make your own color theme. And once you make your theme, you can save it as a custom theme. Okay, now that we got our look and feel, let's move on to some of the more important pieces. So the first option here says question numbering. I don't want numbers because it's an intro page and I don't want there to be a number on the intro page. It makes no sense. to have it next to a descriptive field. That would not be what I want. The next option would be display the question formats. Would you like to go all in one page, or do you want it to go section by section? This one doesn't have a section, so we're going to keep it as all in one page. Do you want the participant to be able to download as a PDF when they get done? Not in this case. Would you like them to be able to, let's see here, save a PDF of the completed survey response in the file upload field? Nope, we don't want to do that. For some of you that are familiar with REDCap, this used to be called it used to be an external module called the save file PDF to, let's see, save PDF to file field, upload field. But recently REDCap developers put it into the software. So that's this external module. Would you like to have a special field that is for invitations? No, not for this particular survey. Would you like to have required fields have the little button square? Do you want to hide that? I don't have any required fields in this one, so I'm gonna leave it the way it is. Do you want to be able to show the participant what the results are? No, not in this case. Would you need to have some kind of text to speech functionality? I'm going to enable it, but have it initially off so that participants that want to use it can turn it on. And I'm going to leave it with the English female option, which is the default option. Okay, so for my survey access, I'm not going to limit it. I'm not going to shut it off. I don't really want to do that. But let's say that you wanted to, when it hit like 300, you want it to shut off so no one can keep going. So that's where you would do this. Or would you like to only take completed responses and boot out any partial completed responses? You could do that. If you limit responses, then you need to be aware that there's a message that could go up here. I'm not going to do that. If they open and do a survey, how long do they have to finish it and before it gets shut down and they can't come back into it? We don't need to do that today. Do you need for the survey to be expired on a very specific day? Maybe in 2 weeks from now at 8 o'clock in the morning, I need it to be shut off for everybody. So you could do that here. Now, I will be honest, just because of the type of studies I do not normally utilize these options, but I do know a lot of people that do. However, I use this option a lot. So this is the save and return option. So if somebody like leaves and you want them to be able to come back a later time, you would want to say, yes, come back. And if you want them to be able to do it without needing a return code, you would have to click this button. Else they're going to have to remember the return code that the system gives at the end. And lastly, if you want them to be able to modify their responses in their completed forms, you would want to click this. So this is a very common default option for my studies that I build. Okay, this one here kind of is a little tricky. So the survey termination options, if you want to auto continue to the next survey, if you choose to do this, this feature right here will override any other continue logic that you will do later on. In particular, you will see this in the survey queue if you choose to do an auto start there. So if you're ever having challenges and you're using a continuation, this is one of those troubleshooting places you're going to want to look right here. See if it's clicked. We do want this one in this case. Oh, wait a minute. Let me think about that. No, we do not, because if they say no, they don't want to continue, then we don't want to do that. If you are at the end of your survey and you want them to head to a specific web page, you could do that here. If you want it to just end with a message, you could change your message here and end here. If you're doing e-consent, this is where, like, if you need to do the e-consent framework for any reason, this is where you would turn on your e-consent framework. You can have it auto archive, which just means that it takes a picture of the PDF and it puts it into the file repository. Or you can have it do an auto archive and have a signature page. We do not need this for this one, but if you do need this, this is where you would find that. Lastly, we could have it send a confirmation email. If we said yes to this, we can choose who is going to be sending it. The options that are here are going to be the people that are in your user rights. Then you could add a subject. If you're at Children's and you need to send it securely, like encrypted, you would put pound secure. I am unaware of what the code is for UC, but you do need to make sure that if you're sending something that needs to be encrypted, you need to make sure you go through your encryption. And then you can have a message here. You can add a file, or you could include the PDF that they just completed, which is a really good way to give a consent form back to a participant. Okay, so we don't want that, but we're at the end of our survey settings, and so we're going to save it. Now, let's go back and take a look at our, whoops, that was not it. Let's see here. Our thing. So now we have our study information. We did a waiver of consent. We're going to pretend we did a waiver. We have a consent button where we move on and we need to head to contact information. So in our contact information, it's time for us to add another instrument. So let's come up here where it says create a new instrument from scratch. We're going to add an instrument here and we're going to say contact. And then we're going to open it up. And let's start with a descriptive field where we say, we're going to say that it's contact information. We're going to make it look pretty. We're going to give it a nice heading. And we could even give some directions on what I expect you to do. Right? Okay, so this is the contact form. So we're going to call it contact, and I'm going to call it a header. Okay. Now, let's add our next field. And our map will tell us what we said we were going to do. So we're going to collect a first name, a last name, and an email. So first name, it's best to break names up because you can concatenate them back together later on, but it's really a pain in the rear end to separate them. So especially when you might have somebody with like two last names or two first names or some kind of like scenario that you don't know whether that middle name is a first name or a last name. So it's just better to keep them separated when you're collecting, and then you can turn it into a concatenated item later on. And concatenate means that you're just gluing the two variables together. So if you have first name in one variable and last name in another, you're gluing them together so that it would be first name space last name. That's a concatenated field. Okay, so we need to change this from a descriptive field to something else. And it's a name and we want them to be able to type, so we're going to say a text box. I do want this to be required, and I do want to note that it is an identifier. I would like it to be on the right-hand side. And I think let's make sure that they're very clear on what we want them to say. And, we have a little note here that says full first name. So first name, full first name. Okay, now let's add another field that's called last name. Again, it's required. It's an identifier, and I'm going to leave all the rest the way it is. And the last item that I said I wanted to collect was an email address. These are all text fields, and I'm going to validate it as an email. It is an identifier, and I'm going to make it required. Okay. Now, what else do we want to do? Let's take a look. Our next one is demographics. So the way I wrote this out, we have a few options. I could go and I could make this into a new instrument. That's a very possible one, but this is a classic build. It's going straight through. We're not coming back to the contact information. We're not circling back. There's no longitudinal aspect to it. So I think, and I don't need to like repeat the contact information. I think it's better to do the demographic information in a section. So I'm going to copy this just so that I have it. So I think what I'm going to do is I'm going to add a field here. And let's see what this is. So um, my my option here is I said that I wanted a checkbox. So I'm going to choose a checkbox field. I said that I wanted to have these options down here. So now that I have something that has multiple answers and I'm having choices, here's my choices down here. So I've got two options here. I can choose my coding myself. I can go like, I want number one, and I would say comma, and then I would put what my coding is. Or what I can do is I can put something here and I can click off of it, and REDCap's going to automatically give it a number. So if I choose not to do the numbering, then REDCap's going to do it for me. So just something to take into consideration. So I like nevers to be zeros. It's just a pet peeve. I'm not sure why. And let's just pick some options here. I guess it doesn't really matter. Oops. Okay, there. And it automatically gave me the 3 and the 4. Now, let's stop and let's think about this for a moment. What is this? So let's get rid of this because that's not what it is anymore. And I'm calling this past users. So my variable is going to be past user. I do want it to be required. Sometimes you have to be careful depending on what your demographic questions are. You don't want required for certain sets of questions. It's not an identifier. I don't need to worry about that. It's going to be check boxes. So I don't want it to be horizontal. Oh, maybe I do. Let's try a left horizontal and see how that works out for us. Now, let's stop and think here for another moment. If they say never been a user, that means they can't be any of these options in my particular case. So there is an action tag in here that is called, let me see. What is it called? There's all kinds of action tags in here. I highly recommend you take the energy and time to go look in here. Max check, no. Max choice, no. Here it is. It's called none of the above. So what it means is that if a particular button or checkbox is clicked, then you're not allowed to have the other options. So, and it tells you in the directions here how to do it. So what it wants you to do is it wants you to you'll hit the add button, and then it says put in equals, and then the question marks are whatever your coded value are. So this example is 98. Okay, this is let me explain this. This is one of those weird nuances that's a little odd. In this particular case, 98 does not have any um, quotes around it, and so that means it's a It's a real number. It's the number 98. However, down here, you can see that this one has quotes around it. And this 45, 99, they're not actually numbers. They are characters that mean whatever the value is for that particular case. So that number 45 is not really number 45. It's character 45. And that 99 is not number 99, it's character 99. So if you are referencing something that's a character, which a code is a character, a code is a character, you would have it inside quotation marks, or and if you are referencing something that is a real number, so a real number would be something like um, a calculated field, or a scoring from a calculated field, or maybe, yeah, that's pretty much about the only way you're going to get a number is through a calculated field. Huh. I can't think of any other option at the moment. Yeah, so most of the time you're going to need to put little quotes around everything. Okay, so let's add this, and we're going to say equal to, and we got to make sure that we put our little quote. And the one that is our none of the above for us is never been a user. So I'm going to put the number 0, and I'm going to end it with a quote. And so now if this is clicked, it will not be chosen. Okay, I need to get rid of this because it's not part of my question. Yay. Oh, I like that. It's not bad. See, it's underneath, which is left, and it's horizontal. Okay, so what's my next question? I say that it's a checkbox. Man, I'm going to have a whole bunch of columns in this particular one. What was I thinking? What REDCap roles have you completed in the past 12 months? So past 12. M for months. That seems like a good option. Okay, we're going to come over here, and we're back to 0 as none, and those are our options. None, data entry, and database development. Let's go back to our action tag. Let's find that none of the above option, and let's make it equal to 0. Okay, and this is another required field. It's not an identifier. Let's just so that we have something that looks different. Let's go right. I don't think right horizontal is going to work. I'm going to click on it so you can see what will happen. And oh, wow, it did work. Well, there you have that. Didn't get that right. Okay, and I like that. Not a bad option. Okay, next question is about how many projects. So type project, right? And my choices are going to be 0 for 1, 0 one time, and longitudinal. And once again, well, wait, do I want this to be checkpoint? Yeah, I guess it is a check, because you could do a build that's both one time and longitudinal. So now we need to go find that none of the above equals 0. Okay, let's get this out. It is required. Let's make this one right vertical so you can see what that looks like. Now we have a left, a right, and now we're going to do a number. And I said that I wanted this to be a continuous variable. So what was I thinking here? I could have it be I want it to be a whole number because you can't really do a half. I could make it a text box and I could validate it as a number that's or an integer. Either of those are good options. I could also do a radio button with a drop down with like a whole slew of numbers. Um, I tend to like that option better only because the I like to control the options. So I'm going to teach you a trick that I use. Sometimes I come over here to Excel and oh, I'm losing my voice. I, I I I start by just picking two options and you can highlight it. And there's a little button here in Excel. Here, let me make it bigger so you'll be able to see. There's this little green button here and you can pull it down and it'll autofill. So let's just give a crazy amount of numbers, 150. So I'm going to copy that and I'm going to put it here in my choices. And what's going to happen is, actually, let's get rid of this one first just so that it does it correctly. Now it made 150, 150. So wasn't that nice, a red cap? So I'm going to come back in here and I'm going to add 0 because I want to make sure that 0 is an option. I'm going to enable an autocomplete for dropdown so that the person that comes in and starts to type number 1, it's done, it's over, it is what it is. And that's a really nice feature that I like. Ta-da! It's going to become smaller because my numbers are smaller. So there's my numbers. I highly doubt anyone will ever go that high, but that's my options. Okay, now let's go back over here. After my demographics, I said I was going to study specific questions. This is something that I would want to do in the next instrument. So, what kind of questions do I want to have? Let's see here. I didn't think about that, did I? Perception of builds and knowledge bar with a slider bar. Huh, that's a good question. Okay, so let's just call this builds. What kinds of things do I want to know? So I'm going to get the hard one out of the way first, which is, may I have permission to, probably can't say it that way. Let's see here. There's got to be a better way to say that. Do you consent to permit the study team to view your project builds? Projects. Let's do it that way. Okay, and it's a required consent to view, and it's not an identifier, and I want it to be horizontal. Beautiful. Actually, let's make it left horizontal. Okay, even better. Okay, so we got the hard one out of the way first. Depending on what you're doing, you might want to do that, you might not want to. Perception of builds. So let's, how, okay, maybe we need a rating, a scale, right? Rate your perception, your, your, hmm, your build difficulty. This is not a very well thought out portion here. This is why you really want to think about your data map ahead of time. But I'm going to try to teach you how to do it. So we're just going to move forward with the options that we have. So we're going to say 1 is easy, 2 is Hmm. Actually, let's see here. We could have 1 is easy, 2 is moderate, and 3 is hard. There we go. Very simple. Build difficulty. It is required. It is going to be a right horizontal. Okay, rate your build difficulty. And then we're just going to pretend that I had a whole bunch of other perceptions of a build. But I did say that I wanted to have knowledge bars with as a slider. What was I thinking when I chose that? Probably that I just wanted to show you guys a slider. Let's see here. Rate your knowledge. Rate your experience. Expertise. Rate your level of expertise. So we could have novice. We could have, I'll have nothing in the middle. Vertical. Right label top if vertical. Hmm. Oh, bottom if, okay. I'm going to make mine horizontal. So novice, expert. And I could have it display values if I wanted to. I will just so that you can see what that looks like. We'll just call it level expert. It is going to be required, and we're going to make it left horizontal this time. So there is my slider bar. Ta-da! It's kind of nice, isn't it? I like it. Okay. Um, Now, I think we need to have a calculated field in here. But you know what? It's really kind of hard to do a calculated field without something to make it go off. Oh, okay, I know what we can do. I know what we can do. How about this? I know people will not know this, but date of your first build, right? So date build 1. And then we want to make it just a month, a year. Let's make it required. And I don't want any date pieces over here because I want them to be able to give me a date. So now we have a date of the build. And then I like to hide, when I do this, I like to hide date form completed. You can use the today function, but the problem with today function is if you come back and you edit this form at a later date, today will change and your calculation will change because the date that you are doing it has changed. So I like a fixed number for my date my form was completed. But you can do this anywhere and you can pipe it from a different spot. Month, day, year. I'm going to hide this one from the survey. I'm going to make it today because I want it to pre-fill with today. And okay, and it's a required. Okay, so now what I can do is I can build myself a calculation. And let's see here, I need the calculated field. Days since first build, right? So the number of days. So number of days since first build. In days build 1. Okay, so when you're trying to do a calculation, lots of times it's best to just go ahead and click on this button here and go look at what your options are for field for calculations and stuff. So there's so many different options here that I'm not going to even try to go through all the options at the moment. we're going to do this date diff one right here, but we want to do it based on days. So you got to come and look at what the units would be, and kind of just pay attention to that kind of stuff. And ours actually is going to look more like this because we're not using a specific date and we're not using days. Actually, I guess we're going to be this one because it says a D here and that's an M. Okay, so this is date in the past, and this is date closer to us. So I'm going to copy this so that I can get the structure of it. When I hit the calculation equation, it opens up an editor. It's giving me a button down here that says error in syntax. This is where things get like just a little scary if you are not used to coding. So all you want to do here is have a bracket with the variable name and an end bracket. And if you can't remember what your variable name is, you can go look it up in your code book, or you can just go back up to that field and look at it and write it down so that you have it correct. Okay, so our first one is called date. Anybody remember? Let's see here. Date what? Oh man. See, okay, this is what I do. I cheat when I don't remember what I put down. So what I did is I duplicated the top up here, and then I went to the code book right here, and the code book has this thing that says collapse all instruments. So I'm going to collapse them all. I know that the ones I'm looking for are in this build one here. And I'm just going to come down on on this second column here until I find the one I'm looking for. The one I'm looking for is date of your first build, and the variable name is date build one. So I'm going to copy that, and I'm coming back over here, and I need it to go right there. Okay. At the end of my name of my variable, I need to put my bracket. So now I've got my bracket. And now I need my other date, which is called date form. Okay. And then I have it ending, I'm calculating it in days, and yeah, that looks good. And it says that it's valid. Now, when you see the word valid, that means that the sentence structure, it's called syntax. The sentence structure of this particular coding line is correct. That means like it's not you're you don't have like extra brackets or extra commas and things like that. Okay? So valid doesn't mean that it's actually going to do what you're wanting to do. It just means that you wrote it correctly. So something to take into consideration. So we're going to update and close the editor. And here is our equation. And I'm going to tell you another little trick that I do when I'm building. I, I copy this and I put it in my field label here so that I know what is being piped into those values. This way I can check the math. So I can say date first build here equals, and now this is called piping. I'm piping this value into this field so that I'll be able to see it. And then I can say form date, or date form completed, equals, and then there's that date, and let's just get rid of this. And now what I've done is I've piped these two values in to here so that I can check my own math, which is a really nice little feature. Okay, so let's save this. Sometimes if you're doing scoring and things like that, you would want to hide this field from the participant. I sometimes, like, let's say that I'm building something for pregnancy and you're doing like days of gestation. That's kind of a fun little thing to give back. If you're doing something that's like age related for little kids, they always love to see it when their age is like 0.000898 something or another. So these are just little things that you can you got to judge what your grouping is. So if you're doing a study that would be maybe the something where they wouldn't want to see it, then you just got to you take that into consideration. Okay. So now I have shown you dates, I've shown you calculated fields, I've shown you radio buttons and a slider button. I've shown you, let's see here. Oh, we probably should have some notes. Okay, so at the bottom here, let's have a note field here for comments. And it's not going to be required. I like my note or my comment fields to be a left alignment because it gives more space for the participant to enter things and it's appealing to the eye. You're more likely to get them to fill something out when it's like that. Um, and then what other options do you think we need? Here, well, let's go look at our map. Oh, URL. See? See, oh, and branching logic. Okay, see, that's where that was supposed to come in. What is the URL of your project? And then what I want them to do here is URL. I don't want it validated because I want them to be able to put, and I wonder if I do. I don't want it to be a text. I want it to be a note because if they have more than one, I want them to be um, able to put that in there. So how do I want to do that? I want to do that here. If you have more than one, wait, how about one per line? One URL per a line. That's good. That's probably really good. Okay. Now we want this to only show up if they consented to let me look at their projects. So this green branching logic button here does that. I'm going to click on it. I can use this advanced branching logic syntax here to type it in myself, but when you are first getting started, it's best to go ahead and do the drag and drop for a little while so that you can learn what that looks like. So for me, I'm in the builds instrument. And the question that I want here is going to say consent view yes. So if they say yes to consenting, then I want to be able to see it. Now, on the right hand side here, this button, this all is a logic statement that has the word and this any is a logic statement that has the word or. And logic statements can get a little bit complex if you're doing a lot of ands and ors. So you have to make sure that you have put parentheses around the correct set of statements if you're going to combine things and do anything complicated around that. And that would be an advanced skill. Now, when you're starting out, I highly recommend that every time you use the drag and drop, you hop in here and you look and see how REDCap wrote out what your equation is. This will help you start to associate how to build out the logic in the event you ever have to do it by hand. Okay. Now, um, REDCap added this little red like branching logic piece here. So now when I'm in the build mode here, I can visually say, oh yes, that right there is branching logic and this is what's happening. And I can say consent views here and here's my variable. And so if I look here, I say this is consent view. Now, I cannot tell if this is a 1 or a 0. From here, I would have to hit the edit button to go look, or I'd have to come over to my code book. There's a few other kind of buttons here that might be helpful for just a standpoint of me to explain. This button here is a copy button. So it would take this variable and make it a second variable and it would put the number like the next number behind the end. So it would go like 1, 2, 3, that kind of thing. This is a move button. So if you wanted to move, you could say, where do I want it to go? Right now, you can see it says field is currently located here. So if I were to move it somewhere else, it would go above whatever I chose. And this X is delete. I don't want to delete it. Okay, let's go back and look at our piece here. Now, what we need to do next is our staff review page. Let's create a staff review. Um, my staff review is going to have some type of decision. I like the staff pages should have decisions and derived variables. Okay, so actually, um, my first one is going to be, let's see here. I'm trying to think of a derived variable that here, let me refresh my variable choices here so that we can think of something. So these checkbox almost always have to become a derived variable. So how would I do that? I could say past user. So, okay, let's say past user derived. Let's just call it DER. And here are, here's the question. I'm going to pull the same question, and this time, instead of having a checkbox, I want to turn this into a radio button with a single option. So my choices now are going to be, let's see here. This is a 0, comma, PI only, data entry only, data manager only, statistician only, and then I need like a multiple. So let's go with, I want it to be like a, well, we'll just go 5. Multiple roles, multiple types. Okay, so this would be a derived variable. When I was all said and done and I came back and I did analytics at a later time and I figured out what my options would be, then I would put them into this scenario. And when it came time for me to do a bar graph, I would base it off of this variable instead of going and doing it off of my other variable. That would be an example of how you could do a derived variable. And then maybe I need to have, what was the other thing I said I was going to do? Okay. So, maybe I need to have a PI. Okay. Ooh, I know. Um, will record be in final analysis? What's wrong with that? Um, so this would be like the PI has to decide. Okay. And then I want to show you another special one just because we're here. So I'm going to give you a default because I love defaults. Username of individual logged into REDCap. Okay, so there is a few different options here on what you could do. We're not going to get into smart variables this time. We'll do smart variables for longitudinal, but when under the action tag, you can come down here and look in here for something called at user name. And it will put your username into the text field. So let's do that. You can also do at username with read only so that the person cannot change it. So that's also a good option. Okay, there we go. It's in logging, but it's good sometimes to have that in front of a person. Record management, it's one of my, like, I require record management in every single build I ever do. Um, and you can choose how you want it to do it. I usually say, is the record inactive or is it active? You can you can say that it's open closed. You could say, I don't know, but this is like if you want to go send a mass set of emails to everybody in your list and somebody has withdrawn or somebody is no longer like you no longer put them in they're an active part of your, or maybe they finished out your study and they're done. I don't know, there's all kinds of reasons that you would want to know that the status is closed. This gives you a really good trigger point for all automation later on, and it really helps manage the record. So I find it to be a probably from a from a database management standpoint and an execution of your study standpoint, it's probably one of the most important variables that you can have to help you make REDCap work for you. Okay, we need to turn on these variables or these not variables, what did I call them? Surveys. So let's get them turned on. We're doing right now is we're just enabling, we want to enable introduction, contact, and builds because those are the ones the participant's going to see. And let's see here. Okay, when they get to the end, because this will be the end, what do I want them to do? So I just want them to have their regular thank you for having a nice day, but I'm going to make it super duper big and I'm going to make it blue. I don't know because that's what I'm feeling like today. So save and exit. I could add a confirmation there, but I'm not going to. Okay, now dun, 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 dun. I want to have a survey notification sent to myself so that when they finish the builds one, I get an email that says, hey, Teresa, someone just finished your survey. Click this link and go back and look. So that's what's happening there. And then I want there to be, oh, wait a minute. Let me think about that. Okay. For the builds, I want there to be an automated invitation saying, um, don't forget. Um, and it's going to come from me. And I'm going to put a message here. I'm going to say, like, don't forget to complete your survey. And then REDCap has this generic language here. The most important thing for you to know is these smart variables. And we'll talk about smart variables more later. But for right now, this here, what it does is it pipes in the link to this survey, and this one here pipes in the URL. And the reason that's important is some people's emails, if they get the link and they don't have like HTML turned on or anything like that, then it won't work. So they need the URL. So but some people they get the URLs and they're too long, and it's like it inhibits people from actually doing what they need to do. So um, REDCap gives you both in the default, and you can. I keep them often. Sometimes if I'm going to get rid of one, I get rid of the link one, and I keep the URL. Okay, I want this to go. So now what I do is I say what my message is, and then the next thing I need to do is I need to say when does my message go. So I want to say when contact is completed, and I don't have any, oh yes I do. And when record status is okay, so this here is called not equal to. Okay, that's the symbol for not equal to. So when it's not equal to a completed record, that's what this statement is saying. So if, wait a minute, I don't, that's, see. I just wrote that and it's not correct. Record status not equal to inactive. That's what I'm trying to say. So if my record status equals active, I don't want it to go. But as long as if it's blank, I want it to go. And if it's active, if it's set to active, which is number one, I want it to go. But if it's set to inactive, I don't want it to go. So that's my thinking there. That's called a stop function, and stop functions are kind of really helpful to make sure you don't, especially if you're getting a little more like a complicated situation, you want to make sure you've got stop measures in. Now, you don't always want this one clicked. Um, but in this particular case, I do want it clicked. So if I'm going immediately, I don't want it clicked. But if I'm doing something that's going to be like a set off time, I probably do want it clicked. And the only difference for that is if I have some kind of date diff or a time diff in here that is looking at something like 0 with the today option of some kind, because it will always be wrong then. So you don't want to do that. So I'm not sending it immediately. What I want to do is I want to say I send it 1 hour later. Okay. So if they forget to complete contact and their record is not inactive, an hour after they leave the contact, send them an email and remind them to come back and finish it. That's what I'm saying. Okay, I could choose to remind them, and I could choose to remind them in all kinds of different scenarios and situations. For this test, I am not going to, but I am going to activate this. Save it. Okay, that is called an automated invitation, an automated survey invitation. Um, what was next? Let's see here. Oh, you know what we're missing? Um, we're missing. Okay, you know what? Let's do the survey queue next. So we'll come over here to the survey queue, and they've got a few different options. You can add a header in here that gives like personalizes the to the person. Like I've seen people add avatars in here or pictures of the person that's doing this, or maybe I mean logos have gone in here. I like to put things like, hi, and then have it say first name. Hi, first name. Um, Welcome to your survey queue or something like that. I don't know. So there you go. That's an example of something you could do. I want to, so the way this works is I like to think of this as an old school clipboard. And when you used to go to the doctor's office and they'd hand you the clipboard and they would put a whole bunch of different forms and they would put them in a certain order. And they would say, here's your first form, here's your second form, here's your third form. Okay, so this is like a magical clipboard. So when you activate over here, what you're saying is put this form on, and then when you activate this one, you're saying add this form to my clipboard. And when you do this one, you're saying add this form to my clipboard. So what you're doing is you're activating it and you're saying, I want this on my clipboard and I want it on my clipboard. Now this is it's kind of hard to imagine because you can't have a clipboard until you do your first survey. So your first survey has to always be looking at your first survey. I know it seems counterintuitive, but that's the way it is. And if you needed to add logic, you could here. Now, if you recall, I mentioned in the survey settings that there was an auto continue function that would override your this auto start. So, but we did not click it in our options, so we're going to do that now. Okay, then we're going to go, after we do introduction, we're going to come down here and we're going to go to contact. And so I want this one to populate after introduction is done. Now I could, even though these are in this order, I can add logic here to make it so they go out of order and one comes before another one. Um, and there's lots of different reasons you might be in that scenario and want to do that. Okay, I'm going to auto continue straight into builds, and I want it to happen after contact, but I could make it show up after introduction. I mean, that's a possibility. Let's just do that. Why not? And that's the end of my survey. So I'm going to close it. Now, let's see here. This is looking pretty good so far. Let's go back to our project setup. Now we are still in this second section at the moment. Um, and I think I will show you the data dictionary, what it looks like right this moment, just so that you can visually get an idea of what that looks like. If I were to open it and take a look at it, it's kind of small. Let's open this up just a little bit. And you can kind of see here is our introduction form. So these are our these were our intro date, our header, our interest. Our next form was called contact, and you can see that right here. It goes from the header to the first name, last name, email, and then my demographics. Oh, you know what I forgot here is I forgot to say demographics. This is that section header. Um, okay. And that was a good catch. Let's see here. This next grouping is my build right here, and then my staff review and my record management. You could have this go in with this, but I'm showing you a, it this way instead at the moment. If you kind of take a look, it's a little hard to tell because what happened is the rich text editor added all your HTML here, and so it looks like a bunch of gook. But if you look very closely, you can see that the word welcome is right there, and you can see that the word information on the study is right there. So that's in those locations. And if I look here, I can see right here is my field options for these particular questions. And if I come over here and I look here, it's really hard to see. Let's see here. Let's go like this. Okay, here is this one here is a message that I had underneath this one, and this one here is a message I had under there. You can see that I had a little bit of validations for different text messages. I have some identifiers here. Here's a branching logic. Here's my required fields, my special alignments, and all of my action tags are at the end and field annotation. Okay, I want to show you what happens when you get a red box from updating. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to delete this field right here because I know that's going to cause an error. And I'm going to save this as a CSV file. And it's already there, which is why it's giving me that message. And I'm just going to say thank you very much. I'm coming back to my build. I always come to the top and I make sure I'm in the correct um, project before I go to upload, especially if you've been at it for a few hours and you're tired. Make sure you're in the right upload. You don't want to mess that up. So you're going to go and you're going to look for the one you want, and I'm going to upload, and it's going to give me a big red box. Oh, it's angry at me. Oh my goodness. But the good news about REDCap is it always tells me where the error is and what the error is. All I have to do is read it, and sometimes it's like, wait, what are you trying to say to me? But you just got to take your time and read it. So it's telling me go look in D3, and it's telling me that the field type is wrong, and it says these are your options. So go back over there and fix those options. And then here it says only text field types may be validated. So something's wrong with H3. So we're going to come back to D3. This is D3, and we're going to type in text. And then let's see what's going on with H3 because, oh, Well, that's because I had a validation there. So the minute I add text back in here, it's going to fix that one. So I'm going to save it. I'm going to go to my previous page. I'm going to choose the file and I'm going to upload it. And now it has no problems. So I'm going to commit my changes because I want to make sure they're there. And what we changed is in contact, we added this section header. And just so that I can show you what that looks like, you go to add field, and the option would be this one that says begin a new section, and then you would just put whatever it is you want right there. Okay. Let's go back to our project setup. So we are done with the design. And we are now in our customizations. We do not have a repeatable instrument, so I'm not going to worry about that. I do want it to auto number. If you're doing a survey, you need to do auto numbering. In fact, it disables the ability to change that. I actually highly recommend that you always do auto numbering. I have a philosophy that if you just let REDCap have its ID, you can have whatever customized ID you want on your own field. But let REDCap do REDCap's thing. That's my like little thing. We're not doing longitudinal, so that's not a possibility. I'm not going to do the randomization module. It doesn't need it for this one. I do want to designate an email survey field. So because I validated my email text as email, I can choose that option here in my drop down box. So I am now saying that that email field is my primary email field. So the record's email of choice. That's really important if you got like a parent and a kid, or maybe like two adults that would be, with two different emails or whatever. There's all kinds of scenarios where you would need multiple emails in a file in a database, but you want to make sure there's a primary email. So um, I need to go back to the online designer now that I made the email the primary email. And I need to go back to this automated invitations. And now that I did that, oh, it's not here. Huh. You know what? Maybe that's in alerts and notifications. My bad. It's been okay. We're back to project setups. Go back to project setups. In project setups, we're going to go to additional customizations. I do want to set the custom record number labels so that I have like I know who the record is. So what I'm doing right now is I'm going to put the person's name next to the number so that I know what record I'm looking at when I pull up my dashboard later on. And then I want it to be, I do not want to so let's see here. I could do that. I could do that. I could designate an email as a secondary identifier. And then, but you have to be very careful because if you say something is an identifier, a secondary unique identifier, you can never use that field again. So if I say email is a secondary unique identifier and someone comes with the same email, they cannot make another record. Same with like you would never want to use first name. That would be a bad choice. But if you're using REDCap record ID and then you have a subject ID, you would want this to be the subject ID. That's the scenario you want this. Okay, I do want to order my records in a different, I want them to be by last name. So alphabetical order basically by last name. And I want the field log, so I'm going to leave that on. I do not have a oh, you know what I will do? Nope, I'm good with that. I'm just going to leave the PDFs the way they are. If I have a missing field, do I want to have the ability to come in and say, you need to make this a no information or a not applicable or something? I do. I'm going to say no information is my option and not applicable is my option. But there's all kinds of things in here that are kind of already here, or already like they're predefined items. So, if the choice that's there is like not available, you can put it here and then it won't be a blank in your database. So for those statisticians out there, so SAS puts a dot. This would be like putting an NA in place of that blank, so it's really is a not available. I think R uses NA, SAS uses a dot. Or a period, I guess you could call it. So what this does is it means there's no blanks in your database. Very good for clean databases. I am going to leave the history pop-up. I like that widget. It's what allows me to see information about a variable next to it. I'm going to leave all of this alone. I don't usually change these items. Um, I do not have Twilio enabled. It is not an option in the training instance. So just be aware that we're not able to do that. I'm done with that. Now let's do a bookmark. I would like to bookmark. Well, I think I told you guys that you have to do a bookmark somewhere. So let's do a bookmark to the Cincinnati REDCap Resource Center. And so what I'm going to do is I'm going to copy the URL and I'm going to put the URL right here and I'm going to call it Resource Center. I want it to be a simple link. I want everybody that's logged in to have it. I want it to open as a new window. I don't want it to I don't want to leave my project. I want it to open as a new window. And I don't know what that is. Oh, we don't want to do that. If you're going from one project to the next project, you could do that. Add a link. You can have as many as you want. So if I come to the left-hand side now and I head down here, it says Project Bookmarks now, and it says Resource Center. And if I click on it, it opens a new slide and it went to where I wanted it to be. Great little tool to get from one place to the next. Project setup. I'm done with that one. Now my user rights. I am currently in here as everything with full data access. I have the ability to do reports. It automatically gave me everything, it looks like. I don't like the calendar, so I usually take it off. I don't want the comparison tool in here. I don't need the file repository. I didn't utilize that in any way, shape, or form. I'll leave that just so I can show you that. I'm not using the app. I do want to be able to rename and delete. I don't need to be able to lock in this particular one. I do want to be able to edit people. And be careful you don't expire yourself. So, but that's a good thing to do to students, like, that are coming in your database and they're only going to be there for 3 months. Go ahead and set your expiration date so that it's done and they can't get into your database after they leave. Okay, so I need to add another person and I want to add one that's data a role. So I'm saying, let's say that you have like a data manager role, or maybe you have a research nurse role, or maybe you have like a CRC. What you want to do is you make a role. This is the rule for this person. And when they're here, these are the things they can do. So this is a data entry person. So I'm going to have them, they need full access to the data, but they do not need to be able to import. And I don't need them to do any of those things. And I don't need to, and I never want them to delete records. So very, very limited access here for this person. So I created a role. I called it data entry. And now I'm going to look up my name for my other account because I have 2 accounts. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to assign my 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 student account to this particular role. And when it happens, it's going to notify my account by email. And so here I am twice now. This is really important. As long as you're in the training instance, you always need to add me. I would prefer if you added my BAK G9P, please. That's really the one you need to add. So every time you're in the training instance, if you're going to have a project here, even if it's a playground project, add me to that project. I'm not going to get into it and do anything to it, I promise, but unless you ask me to. But it's got to be tied to my account. Let's see here. Go back to project setup. I'm not doing a DAG. I don't need it for this kind of study. It's not necessary, so we're not going to do it. And next, I'm on to test my project thoroughly. So in order to test my project, I have to open it up and I've got to put data into it. And that is going to be module 7. So this is a really good stopping point for us. I know this was a long one, and I appreciate you sticking with me. Let's see if I can figure out how to end this thing. I always forget.